barely afternoon.
I was
Welcome,
still gonna say
drinkers.
morning.
And it's still more, yeah. Some of us that get up a little bit earlier. Amber, hey Amber. Amber says who. Amber's one of the only people I tell specifically I'm live, and I told her we are live. Well, now you know.
I am the other part of we, Amber, and it's
Yeah.
so nice to meet you.
So been a little bit. How have you been doing?
I've been dealing with a little bit of anxiety myself.
Yeah, me too.
Um, I had to I had to have my hot water heater replaced yesterday.
Oh, I did that a week ago today.
Look at us with brand new water heaters.
When it, now I have a landlord, so it wasn't too tough. I just made a phone call, had to hang out for a little bit, but no, it's not. It's hard because it's like, okay, first you want a plumber you can trust,
Hmm.
and that's kind of tough. And how do you kind of? But I hope it got taken care of. Did you get a new hot water heater?
I did. I did.
Woo!
$5,000 later, here we
Yep,
are.
yep.
Um, I
That'll
will
cost
say
you.
though, if you are in the Denver metro area, I use Jim Needham Plumbing, and
Okay.
I've called him out here. Fortunately or unfortunately, it feels like quite often recently. And when they were out here last week to help me look at clog in my main line, they
Okay.
didn't even charge me for the service call.
Yeah, that's what I call good customer service.
Yeah, and they've really impressed
Absolutely.
me. Like the first guy that came out was for another clog, and he fixed it and showed me how to do it for next time,
Yeah.
saving
That's
me more money. And those are the kind of people that we need.
yeah. Those are the people that you refer to your friends, that you refer to people that are looking, and that they get more work because they did it the right way. Good afternoon, Michelle. Good to see you.
Hey, Michelle. And like Amber says, look at us adulting.
Yeah, in front of everybody and everything. I hope they don't get any ideas.
I hope they do. But the point is, our lives probably look much different now than they
Absolutely.
did when we were
Yeah.
actively using.
Well, if the hot water heater went out, it meant that that was going to disrupt my drinking time. And if
Right.
you interfered with it, it didn't matter what it was. It would just, if it didn't go according to my plan, then we have a problem.
Yeah. And if this had happened to me 15 years ago, I would have walked next door to the bar.
Yeah,
Because you see, that's what I did to keep myself safe from drinking and driving. Is I just lived next door to the bar I went to.
I did that too, except it was the liquor store. I always made sure the liquor store was within walking distance or I wouldn't move there.
Yes, absolutely. And isn't it funny the things that used to be of utmost importance for us
Yeah,
no longer matter?
yeah. Well, when you're calling around looking for a place, you're talking to landlord. Hey, where's the nearest liquor store? But have a good day, Dion. Yeah, it was nice talking to you.
Well, the funny thing is in order to find those apartments that are by liquor stores or bars or
Mhm.
pawn shops, you have to look in the lower socioeconomic areas.
Yeah, I lived in a lot of areas where I would say that I was probably the wrong ethnicity. Uh,
Not wrong, you were just a bright spot in the community.
there we go. I like the way that you put that. I'm a little more geared towards talking like I still talk like I'm on the streets.
Well,
So,
the simple fact is, I was raised in a community that was largely non white,
mhm.
and I think it made me much better for it.
And, I didn't grow up. Most of the time I grew up in white suburbia in the 70s and 80s. Um, but when my parents started putting me in group homes and other places, that's when I saw the change. I'm like,
That's when you came
man,
up to
there's a
my neighborhood.
whole other world out here that we're just not being taught, man. Um, a lot of culture.
Hmm.
I mean, a shit ton of culture, which we white people do not have. So it was definitely eye-opening to see how other people worked and how they were living their lives, and how, it was about that time when I figured out that I had this thing called white privilege that
Yes.
I could see it. I'm like, wait, none of that happened to me. Why is it? And I'm like, because I'm white.
Yeah.
That's why. Um, I tell you, that just pissed me off because I was the kind of person that I always got put down. I just tell you, I didn't like white people. It gave me too much trouble.
Well, absolutely. But I love that you were taken from a pretty homogenous culture where
Uh-huh.
everything was pretty much the same. And then you were put really against your will
Yeah.
into a community full of diversity.
Hmm.
And you were able to pinpoint that you were being treated differently because of the color of your skin.
Yeah. And
A
it was,
lot
to
of
me, it was
people
wrong.
with our lack of melanin never get to that point.
Hmm.
And the point is, uh, living in a diverse community helps you be more empathetic.
Absolutely. It does.
And being a former addict helps you be more empathetic
Yeah. Yeah. That's
because,
why a lot of it, I think a lot of alcoholics and addicts are misunderstood. We usually have very big giving hearts. We just don't know but that addiction, when it becomes foremost. I mean, I knew I was doing wrong when I was out there stealing and doing these other things. Um, and I do need to qualify that my parents needed to put me in group homes. I needed to be watched 24 hours a day. Um, so I want to kind of clarify that too. Let's do some introductions and get to anxiety here.
yes,
But welcome to the Daily Trudge. It's good to see everybody. Good to have you, Amber, Michelle. Looks like might have a couple other people. If you're here, please say hello, whether you're watching the live or the rewatch, or you can say nothing. You don't have to say anything if you don't want to.
yeah. But either way, welcome.
Yeah. So I think we could probably start with how alcohol actually exacerbates anxiety. It
It
actually
does.
makes it worse, for at least for us alcoholics. I know that. And I'm going to let you start off with that because you understand that clinical side a little bit better than me.
Yeah. So the funny thing is alcohol ratchets up anxiety for everybody that uses it regularly.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, and I'll use my own experience. I was not really ever an anxious person. I was in the military. I was an electrician. I was very
Okay.
assertive until I came to a point where I didn't fit in.
Okay.
I found that by fitting in, or in order to fit in, my best bet was to go drinking with the guys on the crew.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so a couple years after I started doing that, I noticed I was anxious all the time. And
Mm-hmm.
it made me want to get to the bar quicker, to have a drink quicker, to help resolve my anxiety.
Yeah.
So what happens is we start thinking that alcohol or other substances are going to alleviate our anxiety. So we use them, and then we wake up the next morning or whenever, and we realize that we're probably not only hungover or feeling ill, we're also anxious. So what do we do to fix that anxiety?
Mm-hmm.
We jump right back on that hamster wheel. Um, it takes some time for that anxiety to reduce once you quit drinking.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that is finding things that help you modulate your emotions, or kind of take your mind off of the boredom or things like that.
Absolutely. There's something that they call hangxiety, and
I've
it's the
never heard that
anxiety
term.
that we have after drinking.
Yeah.
Um, And part of that anxiety is, number one, I'm hungover, so we think, hair of the dog, these types of things, right? Um, Sorry, somebody just sent me something, kind of upset me a little bit. But I'll get through it. So it's giving me a little anxiety is what it's doing. But 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 then we're always trying to think of where we're going to get the alcohol. Is it 5 o'clock yet? Or I can't seem to be focused on what it is that I need to be doing because I'm too busy thinking about when I'm getting out of here. Um, and then that time start, it is a watched pot never boils. So that time, especially if you had a clock that not a digital one, but an analog clock, watching that, and you can literally see that second and go back a couple of times.
Oh
Right?
yeah.
You know, um, but the part of it, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but when we drink, it goes to the reward center. So when we reward ourselves for having anxiety, what does it do? It gives us more anxiety.
Yeah. Well, and it can also bring up some shame, right?
Yeah.
Because when we get to a certain point, we're drinking not only to alleviate that anxiety, but to cover that shame
Mm-hmm.
for breaking a promise when we're, to ourselves, to a loved one, to the legal system, wherever that promise or that saying, I'm not going to use this comes from.
Mm-hmm.
When we fail to follow through on that, which is not a bad thing because lapses and relapses are a normal part
Yeah.
of this whole process.
Yes, it
And I
is.
don't want people beating themselves up and thinking, oh, I've lost all this time of sobriety. No,
Yeah. Yeah.
you had
That's
a blip. That would be like me having a job and showing up every day, and then I get sick for a week and miss,
mm-hmm.
right? I'm still going to be able to get back in there and do some work,
Absolutely.
just like we can do in our real lives.
Yeah. And you hear some people say, and I find it funny because sometimes I'll listen to somebody in a meeting and they'll be like, "Oh, I've never relapsed." And why is it that relapse doesn't happen until we get into AA or we decide to get in? If you ever made a promise to somebody to quit drinking and you didn't follow through, well, welcome to relapse.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
and
so but they don't always have to be bad. If you come back, if you continue going on, then you didn't lose everything. I had 12 years of
no,
sobriety. I was a drug and alcohol counselor. Did I lose that? No, I did not.
you did
But I
not.
had to work hard to get it back
Yeah.
after 15 years of drinking.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have to.
Hmm.
Um, and I love Amber's feedback. Um, I had a brain fart. I'm sorry.
I get them all the time here. That's just when I just switch topics or
I
grab a
was
cat.
well, I was thinking of what you were just talking about, and I don't know what it was. Maybe a little anxiety.
Yeah. Well, I still get anxiety when I come on, and it's more of a nervous energy than it is anxiety. But yeah, it's hard to come on here and talk about these things when there's people here that can say anything that they want. They can go against what you're saying. They can, yeah. But thankfully, you know, I, yeah, they'll give me a hard time. That's for sure. We have a lot of fun here.
Good.
Laughing's a great way to deal with anxiety.
Humor is one of the easiest coping mechanisms for anything.
Yeah.
Literally for anything.
Hmm.
Are you sad? What's something that will make you laugh?
Yeah.
And that's where so many of us, people, either if we were former addicts, we still identify as a user. Um, Anybody that's had real difficulties in life, humor tends to be the best way to cope. And it also means that a lot of us have a really dark sense of humor and can laugh at almost anything.
Yeah. I usually find when I have other people around me, I probably laugh more here and around the people in my fellowship than I do anywhere else because I can say something and everybody gets it. Where if I said it in a room of normal drinkers, they would just look at me funny, you
Yeah.
know. And we get it because we've been there before. We don't even have to tell the whole joke, and everybody tends to get it, you know. like lately, this has been my favorite AA joke lately, is how do you know AA is not a cult? Because
How
people
is
in cults do what they're told.
that?
So, and we can laugh at that because we've healed, we've healed from that.
Yeah.
Um, I'm diagnosed with acute anxiety, right? So, but we have our different types of anxiety. Mine's more of a social interaction kind of anxiety. So we do have our different types of anxiety. But what are kind of some of the anxieties that yeah, well, let's just look it up. Let's look it up, give us an idea. What are the different types of anxiety? And this will kind of give us, so we have generalized anxiety,
Hmm.
panic disorder, which is the what we were kind of going through when we were drinking, right?
Could
Specific,
be. Yeah.
yeah, specific phobias, social anxiety disorder, separation anxiety disorder, which we alcoholics also go through, and
Hmm.
of course OCD, which is obsessive compulsive disorder. But that has, additionally, PTSD can be, and I'm also classified with CPTSD, which is complex, which means I didn't get mine from a war. That's what that means. It wasn't,
Right.
it
Well,
wasn't.
and it also means that there have probably been more than one specific instance that caused you trauma.
Mhm. Yep. Where
Um,
it's continued.
yeah, and which for many of us that is the case.
Hmm.
One thing that I have found that helps with all areas of anxiety
Hmm.
is what we're doing right now, connecting.
Yeah, we're
Right?
talking about it. Yeah.
Like that outside of this forum, I facilitate DUI groups. Now, people might think, "Oh, that sucks." Let me tell you what, I get so much positive feedback from my people, because of course they come in anxious.
Sure.
Um, but once that that veil comes down and they allow themselves to be seen by the other members of the group. And
Hmm.
again, this is much like AA because group work,
Yeah.
togetherness, really, really helps people.
Yes.
And I have seen people open up in my 12-week education classes
Hmm.
that have made what I probably believe to be lifelong friendships with other participants.
Well, we go through hard things. I mean, um, we and I don't. I think everybody agrees on this. Whether you went to AA, whether you did a EBT, it doesn't matter. We all kind of agree on one thing, and that is the opposite of addiction is fellowship. It's
Yep.
companion. It's working with
Connection.
other people, because addiction isolates you so much. It wants you separated. It literally wants to separate you. And it's that isolation that causes all those things, because now I'm just living with me. And no, I'm not always a people person, but without people in my life, I'd wither and die because I just wouldn't feel useful at all.
Well, and another thing that the alcohol or other substances tell us is that we are the only person that exists that feels this way,
Yes, that's
right?
the
These
isolation.
substances trick our mind,
Hmm.
causing us to isolate further
Yeah,
because we're thinking, if I'm such a terrible person, why would anybody want to be around me?
yeah,
And what we don't realize is that even the people that we are going to the bars with and drinking with, they're feeling the exact same way that we are.
they are, but we don't talk about it at the bars when we're drunk because we've been
Absolutely not.
alleviated of that for now.
We go there to forget about how we're feeling, and
Yeah.
we a lot of times we can do that
Mhm.
for an hour, couple hours, maybe even a whole evening,
Yeah, I
but
was gonna
it's
say
going to
till
be
the
right
bars
there
close
waiting
down
for
usually.
you like a big hairy alarm clock the next morning.
Yeah, yeah, it's you know, I used to for a long time, I'm like, I didn't drive drunk, and really, I didn't. That's why lived a liquor or lived next to a liquor store.
Yeah.
But when I got sober, I thought about it a little bit more. I'm like, no, Dion, your BAC, even in the morning, would have been high enough for a DUI going to work. So absolutely, I did. And it's those denials, those little denials that start to add up to these other things. Um, it doesn't help much if you were the black sheep of your family also, and so you were discounted there, because I was isolated before I even started drinking. I did not feel like I
That's
belonged anywhere.
that's what contributed to your starting.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the moment and I remember it clear as day, I remember the feeling of the first time I drank around my peers. I'd already kind of been drinking, and they had like half a beer in there. I'm on my second, and all of a sudden Dion was cool. All of a sudden Dion was accepted,
Yeah,
and that had never happened in my fucking life. So if you were to tell me, "Oh, you need to quit drinking," I'm like, "No, it's the only thing that's actually making me belong somewhere." Before that, I didn't have an identity, and
right,
even if that identity was alcoholism, it was better than what I had.
right. Because people saw you for the first time.
Yeah.
You felt seen.
Yeah, I could put down the walls. I could put down, because when people are drinking, well, nor when normal people, when a normal drinker drinks, that's how I act anyway. I don't need alcohol, I don't, not to brag, but I don't need alcohol to be an asshole. I can do it without it.
You can do that for free.
Yeah, I don't even need to have a hangover for that one, you know. Um,
And I would imagine when you felt accepted and seen, that really alleviated the anxiety that you were broken or unlovable.
yes,
So we can see the kind of power that these substances hold because they give us something that we could not find elsewhere in our environment.
yeah, and it's true because I had a lot of girlfriends, and and somebody, and they would tell me I love you, and I didn't believe them.
Right?
I did. And they could be telling the truth. They could, but
But
I
did you
just
love you?
couldn't believe that. I'm like, how could you love something like this? You
Yeah.
know? And
Yeah.
at the same time, my brain's going, oh, but the prettier the girl, the better the whatever. Um, even when I dated, I would tell them, and I always picked a codependent because
Hmm.
I'm alcoholic. I couldn't help it. You can't help that. Patterns are patterns. And I would tell them, I'm like, I'm a heavy drinker. Don't try and stop me, or I'll break up with you. And they would still date me. And then they would try and change me, and bam, I'd kick them right out of my life.
Yeah.
Oh, your mom's going to call you. That's the worst thing you could have done. Call my mother. Oh, man, yeah.
Somebody
Now,
called your mother.
now I'd be okay with it because, I'm doing what well, I didn't want to talk to my mom because she knew the fucking truth.
Right. And that's a lot of times why we isolate
Yeah,
because
I
we are
avoided her.
staying away from people who will know.
Yeah, yeah, especially my stepdad. It didn't matter what was going on with me. He could see right through me. It was very, very uncomfortable. Now that I'm sober, I don't mind, you know. But when I'm doing the bad things, just like, you know, when I'm sober, I'm fine with the popo. Right? I actually like the police. I encourage the men in blue. When I'm drinking, no, they're the enemy. They are the enemy, right? I also looked up some ways that you can use to bring down your anxiety. Of course, they're doing the deep breathing, mindfulness, yoga, meditation, visualization. I do a lot of visualization. Like I'll pick 5 blue things that I see in the room, and what
Mhm.
that does, it kind of brings me down. Breathing's a good one. Um, that's why we brought up laughing, because when you laugh, you have to take deep breaths,
Yes, you do.
and it helps with the relaxation. Uh, Talk therapy. They say medication, but we're not going to go. Um, Here's some good things to understand. Identify your triggers. That is actually something I talk about a lot here. That if you can identify and take responsibility for your triggers, you will have more. I don't want to say the word control, but you'll have more control over your anxiety because it's like,
But it
okay, I
is control.
understand that's going on. but why am I feeling this way? And you can get down to that cause and condition a little bit better.
And in order to do that, you have to be able to identify your emotions,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
In our society, American society, society in the United States, very specifically, we kind of don't give men permission to feel many things other than anger
Yeah.
or small bursts of happiness.
Hmm.
So it's integral that men, especially, learn what they're feeling.
Yeah.
And
I absolutely agree with that.
don't care what other people think, because other people do not live in your skin.
Yeah. I mean, my perception, and I mean, you and I get along great. We have a lot of the same ideals, intentions, but your perception of this world is entirely different than mine.
Hmm. Yeah.
And that's okay though,
And
because
that's what
we
makes us
found these
good to
landing
work
spots
well
for us.
together.
Yeah. We can still work, but what that leads to is more understanding, more, a little bit more empathy there that, other people are going through other things. And just because you
Mhm.
don't agree doesn't mean that it isn't happening.
Right. Right.
You know,
And we can't tell other people what they feel.
yeah,
We cannot label other people's emotions
no, we
because
cannot.
they may look very differently coming from you and coming from me.
Yeah, I'm going through a lot. I'm meeting with a psychiatrist today. We're going to be talking about ADHD. But is it ADHD or is it unregulated PTSD or anxiety? Because a lot of these things look the same.
They do.
What I'd like to talk about a little bit is the first 6 months of sobriety,
Yeah.
because this is one thing that you and I agree on, that you shouldn't be diagnosed with a darn thing
No.
in your
And
first 6 months. So
the
anxiety is going to change
DSM-5
a lot.
specifically tells you
Yeah.
if there is not an underlying substance use disorder that
Hmm.
could cause these symptoms,
Hmm.
you cannot diagnose them. So if you are newly sober, like you went to a 30-day treatment and you get out, that is not the time to go to a psychiatrist
Hmm.
because they may diagnose you with PTSD, they
Yeah.
may diagnose you with OCD, they may diagnose you with anxiety,
Anxiety,
depression,
bipolar.
any of the things. I see a lot of people
A
get
lot of people,
both
a lot of people, yeah,
bipolar and borderline.
borderline. Yeah. You could even throw in things like schizophrenia.
I see a lot of
Um,
schizoaffective.
you could throw in narcissism, because that's an actual mental illness.
It is, but I think what we're finding is sometimes people are just assholes,
Yeah.
and it's not clinically diagnosable,
Yeah.
right? We like to think that we can diagnose everybody, but
Yeah. Not everything needs to be diagnosed. I would
right,
absolutely agree with that.
right,
But in those first 6 months, I mean, you're doing a lot of changing, and I found that when alcoholics stay sober for a good 30 days, the first thing that happens is they get a good night's sleep, wake up, and realize that half their problems were made up. They didn't
mhm,
even exist,
yes, yes,
because we've
and
been living
especially
in
the
this
sleep.
dream world for 20 years.
And one thing I do want to talk to people about is regret.
Okay.
Don't regret that time that you were using.
Yeah.
Don't feel like you lost all of that time because you didn't.
Yeah.
What you are doing is you are reinventing yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's going to create separation anxiety, because you're going to
It
be
can.
separated from alcohol for the first time. And then the death of the old self also comes
Yes.
with separation anxiety, because you've
Yeah.
known that person. Like I said earlier,
You've
at
lived
least
with
I
that
was an
person.
alcoholic. At least I was something. I want to go to a couple of things here. Amber says, I'm so glad you said that. Like, you were like, yeah, you're an asshole. So Michelle says, good to know about not seeing a therapist right away. Yeah.
Now, I didn't say don't see a therapist.
Yeah.
I agree that in therapy for everybody, don't see a psychiatrist.
Psychiatrist. Yes.
Don't get medicated for something that may not be applicable to you a month from now when your body is healing.
Yeah. When,
I highly encourage therapy.
for us, yeah, so therapy, good. Psychiatrist, let's wait.
Right.
Count on your therapist for that. Your therapist will let you know whether, because a psychiatrist is there to diagnose and give you meds. That's more of
Yeah.
their job. They're more of a doctor. That they've
Yes.
got the
They went to
education for
medical school.
psychology and a doctorate. So
Yeah, they did. They went to full medical school if they're a psychiatrist.
yes,
Don't
they
bleed
do.
out on us, Dion.
I know. Give me 1 second. This happens often here.
And another thing that people might feel when they're in the beginning stages of treatment, sobriety, recovery, however you want to word it, is loneliness.
Uh-huh.
So when you combine all of those things, you're probably not going to feel really terrific. Physically, you're probably going to be feeling a lot better because your body is starting to recover. You're starting to get more sleep. More and better sleep equals less anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
I also really highly recommend taking a regimen of vitamins,
Yeah.
especially early in recovery, because very nice, because you are probably vitamin deficient in a
Yeah.
lot of areas. So I always recommend at least a B complex and a D and magnesium.
Yeah. Well, and along with that, you're going to start eating again on a regular basis,
Yes.
enough water getting into your system.
Yeah.
Alcohol affects the body in so many ways,
It does.
that a lot of it gets cleared up within those 6 months.
Yes. Drink
Um,
water.
lots and lots of water, man. It's a heat. We got to create those healing circuits, Um, in the beginning, you're gonna be challenged because you're going to be dealing with problems that you were avoiding for years and years and years. So there's
Yeah.
another kind of anxiety, the anxiety that for the first 2, 3 months of your sobriety, you're going to be wrong about everything because you're learning, and that's really the only way to learn is by kind of being admitting that you're wrong and that there might be another way out there for you.
Yeah. And like Amber says, you are going to feel all of your emotions.
Yeah,
That is the perfect time to sit down with yourself and learn to identify what they are.
yeah, and
Learn to identify the root cause.
and that's where therapy and group settings come in really, really handy. Um, because then if you can hear other people, other people that went through what you went through, and they're like, yeah, I go through this and this, and you're like, okay, all right, I'm on the right track. That means because I like what that person's doing. They seem to have a good life and they're like me. So now that's going to give me a chance to do that. And showing our experience and recovering kind of a little bit out loud, I think we need to
Yeah.
brings a lot to the table.
And when we are in the early stages of recovery, um, I think we ought to frame it as an opportunity to be who we want to be.
Yeah.
What that often means is referring to your last point is that you can take little parts of people that you admire
Hmm.
and make them part of you.
Yeah.
Right? Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery.
Yes, it is.
Don't take over somebody's entire personality by all means.
Or their bank
But
account.
or their bank account. That's against the law. I don't advocate for that. But if you see that Dion greets people by name every time he comes in the room and you admire that,
Hmm.
you can greet people by their name every time you come in a room and you're not trying to be Dion, you're trying to be you version 2.0.
Sure.
I'm on about 5.0 right now. So,
What I tell people is my recovery is a bunch of stolen things from hundreds of people.
yes. Yes.
I just, I just kind of copied what they did or what they were doing because I respected them. I trusted them. Well, maybe I didn't even trust them, but I don't need that yet. What I could trust was the process. I could see it working right in front of me, right? So I don't even have to trust that person, but I could see what they were doing, and then I apply that in my life. Um,
Yes.
I'm not doing anything original. I'm doing what people figured out what was best over thousands and thousands of years of discoveries. And so I can learn from past mistakes from other people so I don't repeat them, so I can make it bigger and better. Not maybe not bigger and better, but so I can continue passing that forward.
Well, but it kind of is bigger and better because when you adopt those good behaviors, those positive behaviors that are going to serve you and serve the community, what you're doing is you are modeling good behavior for other people,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
You become the model that you're following.
Yes. And that's what I would call leadership.
Yes. Yes. And again, that is something to really starting to get comfortable in your own skin is something that can help you reduce anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I also like to meditate a little bit. Do you like to meditate?
Yeah, I meditate all the time. I'm a little different in my meditation. I play video games that I play all the time, and I don't have to think. It's just a matter of shutting my head off. But, I don't call it meditation as much as it is decompression.
Yeah.
I'm
Um,
decompressing from the day.
can I share screen?
You should be able to. If not, let me know, and I should be able to change it.
I
Right
have
down there at the bottom, it says share screen.
if you don't mind, I have a 2.5 minute meditation that I've been listening to as long as it's been on YouTube.
Can we
Um,
put the link in? Can you put the link in chat? Or maybe you
yeah,
can send me the link real quick and I can put it in chat and we can do that. I have about 5 more minutes before I got kind of wrap up. I have appointment with a psychiatrist.
well,
There it is. You put it right in. So
yeah,
I'll just go ahead and
this
grab
is
that and I'm gonna put it.
it's 2.5 minutes long.
Oh, you know what? Let's do it. Let's just go ahead and do it. I'm gonna share the screen. Let's do this because I saw the beginning of it and fuck.
I think you're gonna love it. It combines humor and grace with meditation.
All right, let's do it.
Sit or lie comfortably, quietly. Allow yourself to be here, fully, in this moment. With your eyes closed, begin to connect with your inner world of thought and feeling. Gradually, let the horseshit of the external world fade from your awareness. If you find your mind wandering to other thoughts, don't let it concern you. Just acknowledge that all that shit is fucking bullshit. You're here now, in this place, with your inner stillness. Those bitches can't get under your skin. They can't even. Take in a deep breath. Now breathe out. Just feel the fucking nonsense float away. Take full, deep breaths. Breathe in strength. Breathe out bullshit. Allow your breathing to discover its own natural, unhurried pace. If your thoughts drift to the three-ring shit show of your life, bring your attention back to your breathing. And with each breath, feel your body saying, fuck that. With passive acceptance, just allow distracting thoughts to float by. Fuck that. With each breath you take, your thoughts become lighter, and all the soul-eating cocksuckers just fall away into nothing. Take a moment to appreciate the silence. Those assholes can't piss all over a purity like this. You are weightless, timeless, without beginning or end. Completely relaxed and free of thought. And as you slowly open your eyes, greet the world and everything in it with a new, beautiful breath of fuck that.
All right, good stuff.
What'd you think?
I was over here. I don't know if people can hear while I have that go, but I was laughing.
I could hear you giggling a little bit.
Yeah.
I thought you, of all people, might enjoy that. I play that for my DUI groups.
Do you? And free
Yeah.
about the bullshit. And it probably works too, because it's got that calm voice.
And it brings that humor in. You
Yeah.
don't expect to hear those soul-eating
Yeah.
cocksuckers
Yeah.
can't get all over a purity like this.
You got a feeling you got that memorized. So
I've been, like I said, when I was working at a specific place,
yeah.
work had gotten so bad that I listened to that before I went in the building.
Yeah.
I would come out at lunch and listen to it, and I would sit in my car and listen before I went home.
Yeah.
It got me through a lot of tough times.
It's funny, but it's still a good reminder of, that we've got to relax, take it easy. I mean, after everything that we alcoholics and addicts and stuff go through, we certainly do deserve a life that is happy, joyous, and free, and to have good people in our lives. I believe that everybody deserves
one of the good people in our life.
Yeah, everybody deserves to be loved one way or another, man, unconditionally. Because I went through a lot of things, I know what it means to be to be put aside and stuff. So I do everything that I can, including utilizing my white privilege to make things better for everyone. I want everybody, I just want everybody to have a great shot at this like I did. So,
I don't even consider myself an ally anymore. I consider myself an accomplice.
Yeah.
Because I will throw myself in front to protect my community, my people.
Yeah. I think, there's a lot of people that say, God will take care of that, or karma will get the, and I'm a big believer in God, but I also believe that if something happens in front of me, that maybe I need to be taking care of it.
Maybe you are working through God's will.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I keep trying to get out of the middle of it, and every day people are sending me messages. Look what's happening now. Yeah, it's not really needed here. All right. Yeah. Any other last words of wisdom for working with anxiety?
Yes. I'm going to tell everybody in here the same thing I tell every one of the groups that I facilitate. You have to do at least one kind thing for yourself every day. Make that a habit. And as you are treating yourself better, you will feel your anxiety start to lessen.
Mm-hmm.
That kind thing might be listening to a 2.5 minute meditation. Mm-hmm. It might be taking the time to prepare a meal for yourself.
Yeah.
Because you deserve to eat good food.
Mm-hmm.
You deserve to take that time for yourself.
Yeah.
But whatever it is, do something consistently every day. Doesn't have to be the same thing. And what you will find is that increases your capacity to show kindness to others as well.
Mm-hmm. There you go. Now, I have a thing that I've been doing since I was about 17, 18. And what I try and do is I try and make one person a day laugh. All right. And it doesn't seem, okay, I can do something like that. But there's one rule. It can never be the same person twice.
Okay.
So what happens is then after I go through the family and the friends and followers and listeners and AA groups, I have to go out of my way to make some complete stranger I don't know laugh. And it's very challenging after a while, but it always makes you feel better. When you're being positive and you help somebody else laugh, that is contagious. Now they're going to go home and be kind to their kids, or they're going to be kind to the other employees, and things like that. So I found something like that really helps me.
I love that.
Yeah.
Maybe you should try to do stand up at Second Chance Comedy.
I've thought about it. I could rip off. Here's the thing: I do have a little bit of a routine, but it's a direct rip off from Jeff Foxworthy, where it's like, you might be a redneck, right? That one, but mine is more like, if you ever woke up in a tub soaked in your own urine, I'll be an alcoholic. I go on for hours like that.
Oh yeah, I have a friend that was his wake up call, was waking up Winnie the Pooh in a bathtub covered in urine and vomit, wearing a Christmas sweater.
Man, I can't wait for those days again.
Things.
The good old days.
It's funny how we sometimes still label them that, right?
Yeah, we do. Not everything was necessarily bad during my drinking days, but I do know that if I was sober, I would have been able to enjoy it a lot more. I do know that. So, well, Christine, it's always fun to have you on. I appreciate you taking your time and getting up early enough to join us.
I sincerely appreciate
the
invitation.
Absolutely.
I love spending time with you. You know that.
Yeah, and we'll do it again in 2 weeks. We would do it once a week, but Christine and I, we talk about other things that don't belong on lives. So, and why do we do that? To bring down our anxiety, because it's fucking tough working in this field and helping people. It really is. That is an anxiety in and of itself.
And it helps us kind of formulate what we do want to talk about.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you too.
Have
a good appointment. I hope it goes well.
I will. I'm looking forward to it. I've got some valid questions, and just exploring a little bit more how Dion. I can't seem to focus. And everybody keeps bringing up ADHD. Personally, I want to deny it. I'll just be honest, but I'm willing to take a look at it and have an open mind. So we'll see what she has to say. She's the professional. I might be off on what I'm thinking. I don't know yet.
And I'm sure there were times in your past that you denied that you had a problem with alcohol.
Absolutely. That's why I'm saying I'm denying. I'm just going through the process.
Oh, I know. But I love that you're talking through it, because you're normalizing that for other people.
Yeah. Thank you for that. This is also, and I trust this psychiatrist because she's the one that helped me get off 120 milligrams of duloxetine.
Nice.
Yeah. And she didn't do nothing, and she wrote me the scripts. She told me exactly how to do it to get off of it. Now that's a good psychiatrist.
Those are the kind of professionals we need.
Yep. Overcomers Counseling. I recommend that. I highly recommend Overcomers Counseling. They're a great company. They treat, and I know because all their employees love working there. And when somebody has a servant's heart, that's why you become a therapist or a counselor, because you have a servant's heart and they love their job. Then I know something's working.
Yes.
So. And
thank you to everybody that joined today.
Yeah.
I appreciate
everybody for being here. I appreciate it. I love you. You know I do. Peace out.
Love you, dude.
And have a day. And I love you too, Christine. That's just my ending, like a Jerry Springer.
Yeah.
So, but I ruined it now.
You didn't ruin it. Not at all.
Thank you again.